Good morning. We will start with Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga and then Corrector Motivation with Refuge and Bodhicitta. So for those of you who are familiar with those recitation, you're welcome to join us. And if not, just kick back and relax. On the heart of the savior of the 100 deities of the Shita, on a peak of cloud resembling clump of extremely white fresh curd, King of Damon, Lunsum Losum Drapa, please come here together with your sons. In the sky before me, on lying throne, lotus and moon, my perfect pure Guru smiles with delight. Supreme full of merit from a mind of faith, please abide for 100 eons to spread your teachings. Your holy mind is the intelligence that understands the full extent of objects to be known. Your holy speech with its excellent explanations is an ear ornament for those of good fortune. Your holy body is radiantly beautiful with glory renowned. To you are meaningful to see, hear, and remember are prostrate. Pleasant drinking water, various flowers, fragrant incenses, light-scented waters, and so forth. Oceans of cloud-like offerings, both actually arranged and mentally emanated. I offer to you the supreme field of merit. Whatever non-virtue of body, speech, and mind, especially those opposite to the three vows that I've collected from beginningless time, I confess each and every one with fervent regret from my heart. You strove for much learning and practice in this degenerate age and made your freedoms and riches meaningful by abandoning the 8 worldly concerns. Savior, we sincerely rejoice in your extensive deeds. Perfect, pure, holy gurus on the billowing clouds of wisdom and compassion in the sky of the Dhammakaya, please let fall a rain of profound and extensive Dhamma upon the receptacle of those to be subdued exactly as they need. May whatever virtue I've collected benefit the teachings and all transmigrated beings, and in particular may cause the essence of perfect, pure Losam Drakpa's teachings to shine forever. Sa-shi po-ki ju-shi-me-to tam-ri-ram-li-shi ni-de-ye-pa-di Sa-ye-shi-do mi-ke Gi-ro-ku-na-da Shi-la-cho-pa-sho. By the merits of having offered this mandala to Lama Tsongkhapa and 2 sons, may I, my family members, and all sentient beings be able to meet, practice, and actualize the teachings of Victorious One, Losam Drakpa, or the morality of an eminent and pure way of life, was courageous and extensive conduct of the sons of the Victorious Ones, and accomplished the yoga of 2 stages of supreme bliss and emptiness. Idang Guru Ratnamadaya. But as a force of fervently requested in this way, hollow beams of white light are emitted from the hearts of the perfect pure Father and Sons, and combining into one enter my crown. White nectar, the color of milk, falls on the opening of tube of white light, cleansing all my sicknesses, spirit harms, negative karmas, obscurations, and their imprints without exception. My body becomes as pure and clear as crystal. We will recite the 5-line Mixima verse 3 times. Mimetse we te chen cherezi, Jime kembe wambo jambe yang, Dopo malu jomze sawe da, Kanche kembe tsuge tsonga pa, Lo sandra pe shabla sowa de, Mimetse we te chen cherezi, Jime kembe wambo jambe, Dopo malu jomze sawe da, Kanche kembe tsuge tsonga pa, Lo sandra pe shabla sowa de, Mimetse we te chen cherezi, Jime kembe wambo jambe, Dupu malo jomze samveda, kanche kembe tsugen tsonga pa, lo sandra pe shamla sowante.
Sangi Chudan Tsogi Chonam La Chanchu Bardu Dani Kapsuji Dagi Chushi Gibanda Dagi Drolam Benchi Sangi Drupara Sho Sangi Chudan Tsogi Chonam La Chanchu Bardu Dani Kapsuji Dagi Chushi Gibanda Dagi Drolam Benchi Sangi Drupara Sho Sanji Chedan Tsogin Chonam La Chanchu Bardu Dani Kapsuji Dagi Chushi Gibanda Dagi Drolam Peche Sanji Drupara Sho Kangi Tuzi Nizuni Tawa Tamshi Pambi Chere Tambi Chun Dunze Kodam Kela Changse Lo Good morning everyone. 먼저 산님에게 셰시더디 아니 람름 세디 슈거레스
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. During the Sunday morning teaching, we have been looking at a text that is called Lamrim in Tibetan. In English, the title is The Steps of the Path to Enlightenment.
아니 걔는 나눠야 직 난추 고만용애들이 US라
So Geshe is wondering if there are people here that have never heard anything about Buddhism. John,
라 고용애스니마
the konzokakelayo mare the nyama konyomes sukan
레워레
mame nge the ketchine sukan kakelayo mare
렌자로 지금 멤베라
And so Geshe that I asked the question. No one has said anything, so maybe you don't want to expose your cards.
일단 저 단계 람름 슬라운디 비게 더 양이 있어라 더 양이 비게 쪼르디 로 난추기다 아주 수비 차시에 있는 다지 아니 수비 난게다 쪼저라다 쪼 차디 더 람름 디시고서레스로
And so we've been looking at a text that explains the graduated path of enlightenment. And as such, this is a practice or a topic that is the core of our Buddhist practice. And that when we think of, for example, the different organs, the different parts in our body, this is a vital organ.
제 아니 베나 다리 쪼슬라운디 난추기 다 비게 원리가 난추티 라바섬레야 자르도스 라 산지 추디 아니 수점 길라바 땡긴지 길라바 셔럽 길라바 디섬기 또기 데니 간수 주지 다 니무스 세츠 아니 니무세비 세바 디디다 아니 당원이기 다 넘버 산지 위치디 텔 자르고서레스로 텔 자르고거레스로
And so really when we look at what this text applies to, within the Buddhist tradition, the main thing that we take up is the three trainings. So we have training in ethical discipline, training in concentration, and training in wisdom. And so we use those three trainings in order to rid ourselves of afflictions, of disturbing emotions. And so mainly when we look at what the import of the Buddhist tradition is, it is about the elimination of our disturbing emotions.
데레자다 디아 아니 라바숨기 냠랭기다 시주사디 아니 시무빈네슬라야자 싱우빈에서야 시주체네 아니 라바송고 냠냠린 기름바티 송구열에스.
And so the training in the three ethics, concentration, and wisdom is based on reality, in a sense that at the very basis, it is based on how things exist. So we understand how things exist and then take up the practice of the three trainings.
예, 다 싱우빈에서 슬라운디게 양들이야 림바망부치 송대 지로 오늘게 당한수 아니 통대야 아니 고대야 비 소대야 아니 삼대야기 아니 다 율망부쇼저라스 디게 다조디 아니 열루여당 아니 지 존루 존당기 무연에서저라스 디실샤체네 아니 최디 댄샤 산지점되니.
And so, though we say that the three trainings are based on reality, reality in turn is not something that is rather simple, but it has many different levels. And so when we look at reality, the way that things exist, things that we hear, things that we see, things that we sense, the things that we think about, a multitude of objects that we engage with. And so the Buddha spoke about the mode of being, how they are from the perspective of how they arise, how they develop, or what is their realities.
dinza tindigi chodelaya ani dujedan dumachi nichini. So dujig chelaya dujig ches laundi ani du pigeta gyodaken tuman dubala teninta jongoyagi ani chejoras ra dela teni tishisongi teni songdos ra.
And so describing reality in different ways, like, for example, phenomena can be classified into phenomena which are compounded and those which are uncompounded. And so compounded phenomena are compounded by multiple cause and conditions. And so understanding those relationships, cause and conditions contributing to effects and such, the Buddha taught us the Dhamma.
다 균제기 비긴 두지기 추스는다 균제기 추치온디게 간주 간사기 규기 뒤비기 균제식당 아니 규기만 뒤비기다 아니 지 리라발라 소바 라 아니 균제기 셈바 니치니 다 조디 아니 규기 뒤비게 아니 균제기 추려야 자니 송도스.
And so looking at compounded phenomena, those which are compounded by cause and conditions, which means causality, causes and conditions produce effects. There are, again, two sets of causalities, one that belong to our continuum and one that does not belong to our continuum. Like, for example, we'll look at mountains and forests and so forth. Those things do not belong to our continuum as living beings. And so altogether, when we look at causality, there are those that are included in our continuum, belong to our continuum, those which are not, do not belong to our continuum. And the focus is on, in the teachings that the Buddha gave, is on causality that is related to us. It belongs to our continuum.
데레다 난기 비다 간사기다 시규기 뒤비 균델 자온디 아니 조디 아니 대화 동아니 이치네 대화 될래야 균데기를 뭐 찍지 동화 될래야 균데기를 뭐 찍지네 아니 균데기를 뭐 딩이 토네 아니 가서다 돌렌 체단게 름바티 아니 자니 산직 추송 송도스.
And so looking at the set of causality that belongs to us as persons, as human beings, they belong to our continuum, to our mental continuum. And so the Buddha looked at those phenomena and said that there are cause and conditions that produce suffering in our continuum. And there are cause and conditions that also produce happiness or well-being in our continuum. Through understanding the process of causality, how causes and conditions produce well-being or states of unwellness, the Buddha taught what we then take up in a practice and what we set aside in order to avoid suffering.
Terida bena ta dedu gu gyundele ya jaron dige ani gyunde di pigi ta gyunde dia ani gyujin la den chongwanza gyut thoman dibal den gyut thoman dibal den chongwanza an dindi gi gyujin di ngonsu gu ta chus yo bach ro gyo tan tuyak ani neluk jin banza ani devi gyutrub goya da dunghar gu gyus sel go da kansna nganzu samgam la ya tugondi samgam la ya deva deva da dunghar munde ba di ani socha yodo chok ta chigba inza ani deji go ga za deji gi gyutrub go wa di ta me mugo ba cha ni ani devi gyutrub da dunghar degu me ba inza dunghar gu ta ani tsawani pigi ta ani sedangi gyunggodang rimbanil jarni sanjik chud songdo sra.
And so the happiness that we seek and the suffering that we do not wish for function in relation to cause and effect. So the happiness and suffering that we experience depend upon cause and conditions, not only cause and conditions in general, but multiple cause and conditions. And so when we then understand, for example, the cause and conditions that produce happiness or well-being in our continuum, or those that produce suffering, unwellness in our continuum, we can see how we can change the course of the things that we experience in order to affect our experiences. So in relation to that, then we cultivate the cause of happiness and we we eliminate the causes for suffering. And that is based upon the understanding that in our mind, we always wish for happiness and well-being, and we do not want to experience suffering and pain. Not only that, all living beings are exactly the same in that basic wish for happiness and to avoid suffering. And so that being the case, we need then to cultivate the cause and conditions contributing to happiness and to eliminate the cause and conditions contributing to suffering. Needless to say that this is then what we seek to do. And so we stop cultivating causes for suffering and we cultivate the causes for happiness and well-being. And this is what the Buddha taught in his teachings, in his Dharma.
Bena gyudru god bigita gyunsense namandu ta pedra wajilaya ani chigi bena tsishin lotola sobalaya pejan ro chomden digi ta chik tending him bigun do song digi ani pigi marme lotok sa di ani chalaya nabchini ani di khandras jong yome ani delaya pejani ani salu jambing dos sekda or these adinjin song dos.
And so then in needing to cultivate the causes for happiness, the Buddha illustrated that in a certain way in one of the sutras that he taught. The sutra is called the Sutra of the Rice Seedling, in which he looked at an example for what exists in our environment, trees or forest or rice seedling and so forth, looking at the seed of that and using that as an example of how cause and conditions contribute to effects.
Terida dindi manmi lodok die gyu khal deni chomares ro gyul tembare ma tembares la gyul temba imba dang thongo ras ro gyu khal dens saben dengres ona saben di yotsam jiki manmi lodok jungores na jungu mara delia ki chok bigi chuda luda trailer soba mam chuji gogora ona di sama zamji digres ne te digmundo gagen mewachi ro gagen da trebayna chulu samwa ina ya kolan gagen da trebayna ani sabin chom royal soba 아니 딘디 토니 아니 로동 좀 못해야겠다. 네스 뭐 실레고라서라. 다 디조 아니 단 가게 가야 메비 토니 아니 규제 피긴 상고에는 상바이나 야자 야니 야담바 로도디 끼고라서라. 끼고라서 다 디페샤도스.
And so in that famous sutra, the Buddha was holding a rice seedling. And he said that when we look at that rice seedling and wonder, how did it come to be? Did it grow depending upon cause and conditions, or in the absence of cause and conditions? And so, of course, a rice seedling arises from a seed. So is it enough just to have seed in order for a rice seedling to grow? Of course, that's not enough. We also need supportive conditions for the germination of the seed, for the production of the seedling. And so we need water and sunlight and warmth and soil and so forth. All these conducive conditions need to be present for the production of the seedling. And then, is it enough to have the cause and conditions for that to occur? That's the next question. And the Buddha said that also that is not enough, because it can also, those cause and conditions can affect the seed only in the absence of adverse conditions. In that we might have all the supportive conditions present, but if there are also adverse conditions that can destroy the seed, the seedling will not arise. And so if we then make sure that all the set of cause and condition is present in a complete sense, but also that adverse conditions are absent, definitely, then the seedling can be produced.
Terda tangargin kariyores lavana. Tili shembi the good big chuda luda treda chik and it's sound the gargin kariyores lavana. Gargin 7 jump drinking ke sochak dramada yung chogorla. And young piggy tisulia chipena and it zichin zal soba. Mambuki vana. Well, nudos that does some to lengo that does some to lenny. Could Dr. Yawu Chevana? The Lodo Jungu of an Anshinki, any Gedilea Pejani, Sungores.
So what are the adverse conditions that can prevent the production of that seedling? Well, even if we have warmth and water and sunlight and good soil, if the soil is infested by insects or other living beings can destroy the seed, of course, it will not grow. Or if the ground is full of weeds that can inhibit the production of the seed, again, of the seedling, again, it will not be produced. So then in caring for whatever we plant in a field, we need to provide it with supportive conditions, but also to prevent as much as we can adverse conditions for coming up. And so this general explanation was given with respect to then how we cultivate virtuous actions and avoid negative actions.
Terda Tsulpeja on the Lodo di the Gedi Karlaya Pejana, Pejar Chokodosra, and Jomden the Chalan Nabi Mamu Lodo di Devalaya Pejana Jerchodos, and it Dungalaya Pejana Jerchodos. Kanji that Nanzu Devalay Peja on Tamana, Nanzu Dea di Deginza, Degi di Lodo Teres, that Degi Gitsawa. Sawa di Kari Islam, the 7 that Java di the Migichubung Sutrum la Soba, Migichubung Sutrum Tavadi, and in Degi 7 Tavalaya Jargores.
And so in that sutra, when the Buddha spoke of causality and introduced that using that analogy of a seedling, we can apply meaning to that analogy in different ways. Like, for example, the seedling can for us represent happiness and well-being on one, from one perspective, or suffering and pain on the other. And so obviously we want happiness and well-being. This is the harvest that we want. The root of that, the seed for that, is guarding ethical discipline, which abstains from the 10 non-virtues.
Tereda and so the Deva di 아니 근데 루데다 샘디 니그나네 아니 샘데라 자니 걔네 체와디 샘 디기틀이야 차그여 반자 아니 샘데라야 자르시니 송구요레스.
And so seeking happiness and well-being and looking at having to abstain from non-virtues, we create non-virtues with our body, but also with our mind. Of the two, the mind is the most important factor.
데르다디 아니 걔네 체와 임바디야 가족이 썸담바이나 레라고 아니 고투게 저러 당한서 하고 거다 샘바 기부면은 가리 여바이나야 편도메바지 라 아니 샘바 기부 여바이나 아니 지 샘바 가르 메나야 샘바디 기부 여바이나 아니 기부징한 데트야지 용거여서 배는 감바메나 디도고레 모다메나 디도고레 아니 지 사주통기 공부 쉬우진 바이나야 샘르진 바이나 디도고라스라 다 아니 샘바 기부 큐니 메바이나 아니 샘바 차기 가리 여바이나야 자원이니 데 맞추야지 그봐 데 맞추야지 용거라서 간절라.
And we can understand how the mind is paramount. The mind is most important. We can see that. We can see that based upon a personal experience in that, for example, when a mind is unhappy, even if we have good external conditions externally, often it's not enough to make a mind happy. And similarly, when a mind is happy, when a mind is well, even if externally we are impoverished to a certain degree, if we don't have, let's say, a house or a nice car, or if we don't have certain possessions or necessities, with a mind that is happy, with a mind that is well, the absence of some external conditions will not spoil our state of mind. When a mind is not happy at all, nothing works for us. If you want to sit comfortably, there are some sofas at the back. You can just kick back and relax. No worries.
어디리다 인상 더 샘기 비기다 로도다버디 샘기 대발레샤 디기 자와 사변다버디 아니 미기추로 미기추들이야 미기추고 수름대 디 사변다버리스.
And so the harvest that we are speaking of in relation to this analogy is mental happiness, whereas the seed for that is guarding ethical discipline that abstains from the 10 non-virtues.
그러다 아니 디시아 온디게 베나 조디 메기추본디 수술의 디기고와 난신게 셴라야 디기고와 균선도 체지네 아니 셴라야 네버뽕야 체도 메기추보 수름 댄샤야 버디다 세부쇼즈레스.
And so when we then consider the ethical discipline that abstains from the 10 non-virtues, we take it up on the basis of understanding how, while we wish to avoid suffering and pain, others are exactly like us, and therefore in no way it is right to harm others. And therefore, since it is in no way proper to harm others, we take up ethical discipline which abstains from non-virtues.
데다 디비 수tum디 여버sam기 아니 지 셴라야 네버 뽕어sam기 디기 푸숨 소버지 중거라스는 디 카보라스 라 디비게 용약이 규진 푸숨 소번 로얄이야 데니 아니 라바셴이 땡긴지 라바탄 셰르기 라바티 아니 수tum 글라베기 다 가서다 초글이야 잔니 뒤숨 아니 냠슬렌진 뒤숨 랄렌스탄 로바이나 아니 소술이야 디지 푸숨 소보 토마세 아니 셴라 임바이나야 오늘 단내기 아니 된다 데비다 로버체 토야기 아니 니바디 용구여레스라 데즈 산기기다 산기기 디냠슬람을 데네 아니 심전 탐지기 비 아니 텐디 다 균체메바 시토야기 니바디 아니 람라바스 냠네 체발 데네 총아레마다 셴바카이 마레스.
The presence of ethical discipline, which abstains from the 10 non-virtues alone, is not enough to produce perfect happiness and well-being. So while we said that the seed is guarding ethical discipline, it alone is not enough. What we also need to do is to create other causes and conditions that support that in the production of perfect happiness and well-being. And the other causes and conditions that we need to use in order to supplement that, to assist that, are the training in wisdom and the training in concentration. And so through taking up the practice of the three trainings, so ethical discipline, concentration, and wisdom, we not only contribute to a happiness and well-being, but also we live a life that is meaningful, in that when we think of what will be meaningful, it is to be able to be of benefit to others. And so through taking up the three trainings, in our practice, we then train along the steps of the path in order to increase our ability to be of benefit to others, to the point in which we would be able to benefit in others in an uninterrupted flow.
Terdinza dindige ane lam labasumdi yamnen che tungindi nganzu sochag namonida ani yakshudi ro nibayongindi mechaga yawanza melaya mixegi ni sanji chomden digita damba nanchinero ani keram mulitoyanza mulit tanda damba chegoyati kichimures di ani ta kasakani ro sung kasakani tendeyadi nenga tichadishasro 마도 던조로 지인바나 딘디게 삼셰다 아니 가서다 남주 콘 폐야기 니바요 말아왔어 로 답시요 말아왔어.
And so practicing the parts of the three trainings is afforded by being born as a human being. In fact, the ability to take up the practice of the three trainings, the best ability is found within our state of existence as human beings. And therefore, the advice given by the Buddha is to not let that opportunity go to waste. It is important to make a life meaningful, being born as a human being, for when we consider other options, like, for example, when we see the capabilities of animals and so forth, we see that they lack the ability to develop their minds to a great extent. And therefore, once we as human beings have that ability, it is imperative that we make a life meaningful.
Terdinzada roanganzulaya mixing tumo maimbi nibaji yabadi nibadu tsar tengoyadi da susugi kasata gunkosa namundo ani yana dichagorasra tim maimbi da chitangi solcha shanda tunrodan javigi ani nibachi da yungorda di Mixe was kiremandos. Mixe was in Membadi, Tolaya, and Messidi, and it is indigilaya, Messed Shorwana, and Milu Lambige, and it good mandribu storage, and it Pambujire shas. But Dindi Songodazara, Sanji, the Diani and the Songodazara, and to meet in the Mig Nibadi, and it Pechuchi, me never started to go at the kitchen way much.
And so in recognizing that as human beings, we have unique abilities, the purpose then of our life would be to make sure that we use our great capabilities. Otherwise, being born as an animal, for example, we might have some capabilities, some abilities, but not particular one, special one that will allow that mental development, that will allow for that mental development. And so recognizing that we have attained a human rebirth, a human birth, we want to make sure that we do not let that opportunity go to waste. We seize that in making a life meaningful.
아니 산지 좀 된데 강송샤바디 아니 녜시바 삼투야 삼반난신기 빌랭니피기 소선 제투야 남주트야 니버 케버진지 여반사 디인지민지기 아니 짜치무진 뒤주 될 때는 로트와나 아니 메세디 아니 텐다데마 차그도스 아니 디 쇼르야 아니 데기세디 낭기 용데지 로 데기 The Lama Komazu song digi can digi Mugos Lavana, digi Grace. What did the song do?
Comparing ourselves to other life forms like wild animals and so forth, like us, they have the ability to inflict harm on others. And so if we limit our behavior to that form of activity, there is nothing special in being born as a human being. But we as human beings, we were born with those special capabilities. So we can, for example, listen to the teachings of the Buddha. We can think through the teachings of the Buddha and take them on. And we have the ability to do that, to turn our life to be meaningful using that. And if we do that as a byproduct, our happiness and well-being will grow and increase, to the point that even if we say, I do not want happiness, I do not want well-being, if we take up those teachings and put them into practice, naturally, happiness will arise.
아니 지 안줄래야 도모메반 여대에게 차담모송 코는 기 샤완드 여진이 아니 지 돈르스문제 난신치니 라 아니 랑게 샴파미야게 소르진 로데와나 아니 디지 용세디 각부쇼치 라 디지 짜오 또르고요 반사 다든데 샘그 디지 짜오 코 또르고요반사 아니 샘그 디지 용에 베각부레스 라 네갑게 대화제다 용거데이네야 디 아니 동알에 견적으레스 디펜토 마레스.
And so if we don't think of what is positive and what is negative, if we allow our mind to still remain under the control of anger, attachment, and ignorance, those positive states of mind, if we still seek to be victorious over others, even if it comes at the expense of others, at the defeat of others, we will continue to destroy our own happiness, particularly our own mental happiness and well-being. And while it is possible from time to time to still be happy, to experience some pleasure, it will not remain for long. It will be a fleeting sense of happiness and well-being, which means that it's not that useful.
Re bena tunrugi kala saundi gadzu satudu jibe ani 사샤야마도 최소로 제식 말아서 어디 소로 지간 주게 다 착신 가운데 아니 세샤와나 디게 네버지마도 펜바문도 왔을 펜바 인고 말아서 안 산지기 취하나야 칼라사단이 진 아니 조당 대당 배 더 디낭신의 연구 말다 배는 잠비용데 중니셀 소요라다 아니 주소 칼라사단지 칼라디다 대상한조 칼라 사야 망자니 칼라 마슈비로 칼라 망자니 나사 차야디 배 망부 연구 알았다로 칼라디 뉴뇽지 세바이나 칼라디 딱딱 세비기 칼라 그 니버디 주부나라야 슈르투야 디그 수불이야 펜비기 차기란도야 딘디 망부 쇼송샤스라 딘디 망부 쇼송샤 나한테 두고 말하더라 칼라지 아버지라와나 약속 세운데 사즈디기더니 주부대 지고사고 아니 샘바데 뉴업토 다 캔서 배차고 알아서 간지 미 남주도 배주 제지네 그 가르 펭귄도 가르 누구도 디아보시 산지 송샤요레 디시송기 니삼 곰니 드바이나 안간주 메시디 디게데 데마 야지야다 소투고 서레스
When we look at our behavior as human beings and we compare it to other living beings, like animals, for example, we can see that with many animals, the way that they eat the food is quite measured. Whereas for us, often we go overboard with a sense of attachment, with a sense of clinging. We, particularly at this point in time, modern time, we often eat too much, not in a measured way, and that's not helpful. In terms of our body has a certain capability of digesting food. When we go overboard, when we eat too much, particularly when we enjoy delicious food and we want more, and we load our body system with too much food, we get sick. different sicknesses. So that's not helpful. And so we want to use our intelligence then in general to come to a conclusion with respect to what is helpful, what is not helpful. For that end, we study, reflect, and meditate.
terdenza pigi 아니 무기 주분 그 수름 디 이게 제부 푸숨 소바 용냐래야 아니 가겐다 마소나 아니 몸바 마리바다 데샤다 컨트롤 소비 지기여반자 다 두수 두수바 짜마소야겠다 님부 따오디 아니 신내당 땡인진다 셔럽디 송거도 왔으러.
And so we said that guiding ethical discipline, which abstains from the 10 non-virtues, is the root of happiness and well-being. Now, what is adverse to ethical discipline is ignorance, anger, and attachment. And so we want to clean our mind of attachment, anger, and ignorance. The antidotes to them is the cultivation of concentration and wisdom.
들다 nganzu dus drojadige nganzu semnola 지 몽바 가주 슈침부 예메다 아니 지 착셈 가주 수용 기기 예메 아니 콩로단 지 셰당을 소바 착도를 소바 가주 수용 그 예메디 nganzu 심죽 마지바나 통구문도서 내가 가르치바는 수수 자바디 디교다 생기 가르치바나야 만두견 통돼야디 에 그 착당 모송기 로디디 문진치 마투비 깽 디응고야사레스.
If we don't look at our mind and come to assess the degree to which we are affected by delusion, by ignorance, by attachment, by anger, hatred, animosity, by jealousy, we will not know how deep they run in our mind. And we'll still continue to assume that there's nothing wrong with us. It's the problem of other people. The inability to recognize our own afflictive states of mind ends up in assuming always that we are right and others are wrong.
that nganzu 소소소게 샘근난 그 차당 모습 문진 투약이 탑시 약시 디 땡인즈 곰비칼이야 라투여서레서 땡인즈 피기게 율직래야 샘때니 대야게 아니 디치온디게 다 디술래야 아니 로카르카르로 아니 몸바 가주스레기도 아니 대차라 소바 딘디게 거비차드 가르레기도라 디로 피기래야 찌찌도 데마투야 싸우니는 데마투야기 아니 깬데 가는 연구도 다디 땡인즈 곰비 갑둘래야 드니 아니 비기다 시젠생에게 로디기다 딱지 제바나 드닝 안주 샘래야 몸바다 몸바 마리바다 되살로 소바 디디기다 아니 가서다 네로다 마스는 쇼 기여바디 오는 이게 곰갱해지는 통고서레스 문지치 통고서레스.
And so often we do not recognize the extent of our afflictive emotions of anger, attachment, ignorance, and so forth. And so one of the best ways to recognize those afflictive states of mind is through the cultivation of concentration. So when we cultivate concentration, we cultivate a single pointedness of mind in which we attend the mind to a single object. And so as we take up the practice of concentration, we can assess the degree to which we're affected by attachment, by discursiveness, by distraction. And so long as these arise, they do not allow our mind to abide single-pointedly upon the mind. So the way to inspect the mind as we try to make the mind remain placed single-pointed upon one object is through the development of introspection or vigilance. When we do that, we then can really damage our afflictive emotions, anger, attachment, and so forth, at least as far as recognizing the degree to which we're affected by them.
마리바단 지금 되살아 소바 로코랑기 고 big chelela soba ani ngunzi yakbu tuyala ani big yulg nilu leya ani cheba kazus chetu matulaya rali yores imbayna ya maribagi kazus semleya never tang dumundu ro kaptu leya kazus nu dumundu 땡인즈 gombi kabdulaya ani tig surni ani sozu sem de kandrogu yemi ta tungingi ani samloji tamayna nögyon kazu chagu yemi nögyon ragba di jaji jadam di kalaya totugu yasares ro teaching da 땡인즈
we are affected by ignorance, by attachment, and so forth. And so we then, first of all, come to understand, to know what the nature of these afflictive states of mind is. What is the functionality? And to be able to recognize that, we also need to go through a process of analysis, analyzing an object. And when we go through the process, we can understand the degree to which ignorance is inflicting damage upon us. At least we can have at least an assessment of the coarse way in which we are affected by ignorance.
Tilda dadini 땡인즈 gombi ni dojashda temula sobi ani susu semla ya shu chikpi parje chigi yobon tongdigi ta di pombi ta ngoni ta chig dojashda temusum be zame songindi 아니 내룩 대코는 또비 셔럽도 차원자 되니 셔럽 곰당가는 바디 셔럽 곰체니 아니 뉴무세 베르바디 디순고레스 다디 아니 상기기 추다 아 님보로디 디차고레스라 디차고레스.
And so we then meditate on concentration, and through that we see the degree to which we are affected by anger, attachment, and ignorance. We see them as obstructions. But to completely purge them from our mind, to completely clean them, we need to develop wisdom that realizes reality, the way that things exist. Wisdom will be the force that will eliminate our afflictive emotions. And this is the essence that of the teachings that the Buddha gave.
슈드 셰싱만데나 간지 모드로지 수드라 모드로지 산지 추다 모드 지브 퀸스.
And so in this way, first of Geshe gave a certain introduction to the Buddha Dhamma, the teachings of the Buddha. Geshe does not know whether he's done that skillfully, but anyway, that's for a general introduction to the Buddha Dhamma.
대당한서 디 젠더디 참디 this loshagin is ra pabotomiki jang setting on.
Now, with that in mind, we will now go back to the text and pick up from the point that we left off in the previous session. And so we're looking at the presentation of the steps of the path of enlightenment, and we have been looking at the way to practice concentration, a concentration that is shamatha. Now we're looking at the moment of the way to develop a flowless concentration. So we have identified the flows in our concentration, what impedes concentration, laxity, and excitation. And so in going back to the text and picking up from the point that we left off, I think I've lost the plot. Just a second. All right, how to direct the mind to it. Eliminating flows. For some reason, the text went backwards. Okay. Yeah. Bingo. All right. And so let's look at this section. Maintaining the meditation like that, periodically recording the original focal object, is also necessary as a cause for powerful continuous mindfulness. This is why this method for maintaining mindfulness is set forth in Shravaka levels, and why it says in the following explanation of distinguishing the middle from the extremes. The step in mindfulness is not forgetting the object means for the mind to exhibit instructions on placing the mind. I think that it's still not bingo. Let's see. Not sure that I... The page the true do 인지겠더라.
truth인데.
나.
혹시?
말에 대 가상아서 대 세스도. 샤사스도 참도. 대 Oh, okay. Sorry. This is where it is. All right. So in the previous session, we read through this point. As for the points where tightness and relaxation are balanced, investigate this for yourself. You should be more relaxed in the mind state where you think, if I tighten it this much, excitement will surely arise. And you should always place it above that mind state where you think, if I place it only here, laxity will easily arise. In the context of the first and second mental states, the Noble Asanga also says, that is to say, when placement and continuous placement are performed, there is a mental attention that holds the object tight as it engages it.
파부토미 로셈스 셈 당분이지 급수 송신 공룸 당불레 장스 지원살라 미버티니 담도 송스 시시도스.
And so first off, Asanga related his instructions to the first and second states of mental placement, which are the stages that we go through cultivating a single pointed concentration, that is shamatha. And so it says, that is to say, when placement and continuous placement are performed, these are the first two stages. There is a mental attention that holds the object tight as it engages it. Now, the first stages of meditation also instructs, eliminate laxity and hold the object tight.
The temper lung had their mashiba channels. Gum chizam mount cheva, some to jengy cheva tongues. Sure of the Namji Sherab Turtun to a soch, Gemambo Jongosa.
If you maintain your meditation without knowing the above method for applying mindfulness, then however much you meditate, you will acquire only a host of faults, great forgetfulness, a dulling of your wisdom that distinguishes amongst phenomena and so forth.
There's the temper delu said the and temper de usually same gene. The kanji Tanganzu Delia Pejadi, the Majam de Kujilia, Kundajilia, same day, Suzu Kunda Tambokari, Imbati Yabu, Shinjichene, Tini Kunda the Pashan, Kunda Delia, some down the Tata, Semlia, Sharia Joros, Semlia, Shariati. The D Sharia D and Suzuki, Tempe Migbaris, Tempe Yulis, Tindiki Tempe Yuldi, and big things in Yulia Shagores. That thing is gone on the and it's some Kasakali Camdro, the Ra Kasakali Tigdo, Tigdo, Tanjig me what the Masonche, can't Tiwatelia, Sam and then Droshavana, any Komshi sort of chick. Me one Hamalani, and me what Chimalia, Judreg, Komshi Chavana, any Namad Jedreg, the Komshi Chavores. The Dravana and dig Sherablia Nugre, Tembalia Nugres. Nama courage and the Yila Shava Taranlia Sam Deche. Any Kizi Pig is Lojambi Chola Drogana, any Tembisu and the Sonchin. Tembi and get me what to sell them, me with Taranlia Sam Tegres.
And so with mindfulness, we focus on an object. And so, as we said previously, we take up an object, like, for example, a Buddha image. So first of all, we if we take up an object that is a Buddha image, we might use a Buddha statue as a point of reference. So first off, we study the details, and we study the details well. And then, having studied those details clearly, we try to make that clearly appear to our mind. And so that would be the object of mindfulness, making the image of that appear to our mind, and we develop mindfulness in focusing on that. And so as we sustain mindfulness, focusing on that image appearing to our mind, we also then use that as an object for the development of concentration. And so what impedes that is a mind that tends to be all over the place with a sense of discursiveness. So if we allow the mind to move from previous object to a new one, right? So we cultivate concentration and the mind becomes scattered and it moves from one object to the next. So if we allow the mind to remain like that, we will not develop mindfulness. We will actually be habituated with mental wandering. And so in the course of practicing mindfulness, we practice a non-forgetfulness of the focal object. And so we develop non-forgetfulness of the object. In keeping in mind that if we do not do that, that will impede the development of mindfulness and wisdom.
Things that is Russia big the Yul Mambo Jechu Shavana. Me was me tang Yamag me what the Jeju Shavana and the Semlaya come to Jatejene and Sheriff to Dogres. This one goes a race.
And so this is likely to be what Lama Tsongkhapa refers to here when he says, if you maintain your meditation without knowing the above method for applying mindfulness, then however much you meditate, you will acquire only a host of faults, great forgetfulness, and a dulling of your wisdom that distinguishes amongst phenomena and so forth, which means that if we allow the mind to go between objects continuously, forgetting one object and then moving on to the next, forgetting that object and then moving on to the next, that will not only incur great forgetfulness, but also a dulling of our wisdom.
The same di migwalapat and the damni di tempati chagoras. Things are one tempe, same migwala tapati se migwal level zenam minzinji charachibi, topaki rongom yamnas, chivari. Any dear Rungures. Then it chagobo, gomrum pavali sonsos, leven kamalash lagta, petting in the layashin and chanting and leventing that the gogudus, sungudus, ra.
And so this is what we then need to do with our mindfulness. And so then someone might wonder, Lama Tsongkhapa introduces a certain question or doubt. Someone might wonder, well then, while mindfulness ties the mind to the object, it is appropriate to generate conceptual thought that observes whether the object is being held well.
Sevi migwalang har shabatar ne meneta menena chingo kandu sonwa tawa tsam chebate tengin zala shani hajan tongwa da hajan rima mayimba parapardu chara chetos.
And so if someone might wonder whether it is appropriate to generate a conceptual thought that observes whether the object is being held well, Lama Tsongkhapa draws from Kamalashila's second stage of meditation that supports this approach. The second stage of meditation says that this is indeed what needs to be done. Specifically, it is not that you first release your concentration and then observe in this way. Rather, from within your placement in concentration, you merely observe whether the mind is still on the original focal object like before, and if not, whether it has become excited or lax. Once your mind is placed in concentration, you should observe it now and then at intervals neither too short nor too long.
Reda nganzu tes komdi tebaina tenden tu shetu yosares. Mando komdi mate bi kabdula ani sem di pigi migbala yani ani di surni sem migbala nedan din jingmun ju chara chinging loki kuslam di ani karsoda mi chiglaya mi shemba chi tato yongi sorji chagda di semgi ten gi chetugu yosares ro komdi tes tebaina.
So we use that mode of introspection in order to spy on the mind, so to speak, in a sense that when we are not accustomed to this mode of cultivating mindfulness, we will not be able to assess the degree by which we are abiding on the object or not abiding on the object, or how short or how long our abidance on the object will remain. But when we get used to that, we'll be able then to sustain our focus, to remain, to abide with our focal object. And we also need to employ that mode of spying on the mind to make sure that it still abides on a certain object. It's just like, if we use an analogy, someone needs to do a particular job and you appoint someone to observe over them to make sure that they do it.
The country's goal is long hammy shug masse samni any masse samni the chebana loti ngar kenis ngaden la nebi yurin watang chingu new top gobayotos.
So Lama Tsongkhapa then continues in saying, if you do this before the force of previous mind has been exhausted, it has the value that the mind will become vibrant again, that its vibrancy will last for a long time, and that laxity and excitement will be recognized quickly.
대신도 파라파도 미방 하마 텐섬 체니 용아양 쳔바톱치와 당스 균딘도 주부 귤고비 쳔비 쫀수 텐 년살에 손라스.
Maintaining the meditation like that, periodically recalling the original object, it is also necessary as a cause for powerful continuous mindfulness. That is why this method for maintaining mindfulness is set forth in Shravaka levels.
그래다 쳔바톱친 세디 아니 쳔바시부 아니 쳔바디 비기 쳔바디 율데다 아니 마제바 짬마시 율시부 아니 셈디 율텔바 로 띵인 좀때 셈디 율텔바 아니 틱퉁인게 쳔바들이야 아니 쳔바톱친 세고사레스.
So the power of mindfulness, a powerful mindfulness, would be mindfulness which is clear, not just non-forgetfulness of an object, but also that which induces clarity, in that the mind would be completely entangled with its object.
운팀 제실리 전반에 미고 맞이보고스 시차원이 셈 네버체비 당가 이지 저보 시송반이 전반 때반이 미고리 이니 미고 제방고비 치임비 미고 맞이반이 이지 미고 저보때 양야 미고 열체보 페나 시비 된가시 제지 토니 양야 전반치나 제가와던 저오스.
That is why this method for maintaining mindfulness is set forth in Shravaka levels, and why it says in the following in explanation of distinguishing the middle from the extremes. The statement mindfulness is not forgetting the object means for the mind to exhibit the instructions on place in the mind. One applies mindfulness in order to stop being distracted from the object and forgetting it. Therefore, not forgetting the object is to mentally exhibit the object and mentally attend to it again and again. It is like when you are afraid that you might forget something you know. You recall it again and again, making it hard to forget.
다숨바디 비 튕긋세 땜바세드레.
Sungitse.
Sumbanis, wana tembi semmiwala tabala. This some part joke chibi. Tunse ngeba yotam me jena. Dela nyansala sobi shon chewa namni. Tunse sawa songa minhayang. Gongrum tamali dedawi rambandi. Chutsu chikam. Metsi tunchetam. Tunchikam. Chisik neba tesik dunduba chawo she songlas.
Now, next, Lama Tsongkhapa speaks of determining the length of sessions one sustains in cultivating concentration. Someone might ask, now, is there an established length of meditation sessions specified in terms of tie the mind to the object and place it for just this long? Major texts such as Sravaka levels do not seem to clearly uphold an established length. However, Kamalashila's third stage of meditations says, doing these practices in this order, sit for 24 minutes, an hour and a half, 3 hours, or as long as you can.
This shinin trupsini hangdong gombi tuikin tunzi ji kapsu son hanyang, tomar shini dribi kapsu yang drawar ngonos.
This appears to have been set forth in the context of establishing the length of meditation sessions for cultivating special insight after shamatha has already been accomplished. But it is evidently similar in the context of initially practicing shamatha.
Tenghar shabatari tenshi kyonlu parpadu mikba temba tang parpadu chara chena tun chung rinyang kyon me mu wenjan le tangbo wa par chewalan tun rina yana jengi kedi inin droshan hizi chingo kang jonya yurimbo ni ngoshiba tsammato nyurbu ngu misinlas temba maji jan chingo ki ondun drolhashin
If you recollect the object and observe your practice periodically, the method for maintaining mindfulness and vigilance explained above is indeed faultless, even for long sessions. However, for most beginners, forgetfulness arises if the sessions are long. They become distracted and mentally wander off, and although laxity and excitement occur in the process, they do not identify them quickly, but recognize them only after much time has elapsed. Let's read through the next line. Alternatively, even if they do not lose their mindfulness, they easily fall under the power of laxity and excitement and do not identify them quickly. Awesome. It is difficult to cut through laxity and excitement because the former of these two impedes the arising of strong mindfulness, whereas the latter impedes the arising of strong vigilance. Specifically, it is a lot worse to forget the meditation object, become distracted, and then fail to notice laxity and excitement than it is to not identify laxity and excitement quickly, but still remember the meditation object. Therefore, the method for maintaining mindfulness explained above is very important as the antidote that counteracts distraction and the deterioration of mindfulness.
pala goni chuchu chigla sobi yunse mangi ba sonshin dorna rangi lonu dan tungubi chisi neba tesi du she sonsos.
Short sessions are needed in the event of great forgetfulness or the mind getting distracted and wandering off a lot. When the vigilance that quickly identifies laxity and excitement is weak. On the other hand, if forgetfulness rarely arises and it seems that laxity and excitement are being recognized quickly, there's nothing wrong with slightly longer sessions either. It is with an awareness of this that the duration is not specified as 24 minutes and so on. In brief, it says as long as you can because the length must accord with one's mental abilities.
Zhenyang lusum la loru nebo machon nyambar jola. Chona utsu chede mugomba. Kamgi parche selde gomba ni keban namki gomba imbe. Teder cheba yan tunze gi yanlado shibar chawos.
Apart from that, you should rest in meditative equipoise unless you suffer some temporary physical or mental harm. If that happens, do not continue meditating, but rather eliminate the obstacles to your physical and mental constitution first, and then meditate. That is the opinion of experts. So you should know that doing that factors into the length of sessions.
Yes. Have you
got any questions? Nathan? Lord Nathan, I should say. So Nathan is saying that it's not a question, but rather than observation. You said that you read that, for example, when people are using TikToks, the concentration span is about 3 seconds before you flick on to the next clip. And so the development of concentration in general is difficult, but even more so, it is made difficult through using such apps when we habituate the mind with kind of that constant wandering. Yeah. 칼라 디사 디라 ngaso khabala dende chi daminda logerwa ane chage di ta du dende temo daminda te denda memancha shunu denso dende di second sumato kache sumato de tugi marwan shochi chedwa 제산 남균 띵엔진 공연 di kale kabore ne hak바도 텐상 다디 자기야 카와 dende ji dilasa ba kengi peshe kale ka chagi sari So what are you doing about it? Removing TikTok from your phone? You haven't gone that drastic path yet. Just a general point. Ready does this chidan di sanochi kosonsa.
Peshe di samu madana yaksares. Tu mare, yonsa mare, dur drog de samna semju chai nyenga yorwas. Tiltu kantuya di chegwa samsong roshawa no. Yaga medros ra.
Dai di digala di an peshe kunan nenga di kaves na das. Peshe di 야고 여행이 체두한테 그나 카바단 차게라서 빠져. 림보체네 체고로. Well, Geshe said that it is indeed hard, but if we look at it only from the negative side, there is a danger that will become too disheartened and think that I'm not going to be able to practice concentration. And so it is important to make sure that also our behavior becomes measured, in that we do not become too sidetracked by things like that, by TikTok and so forth, but also not to think that it's too difficult and therefore how can someone like me accomplish that? Because if we put ourselves down, it is likely that we're not going to be able to do it.
Sanji is Sondan the Mitsama di Chegore Doji Sungu Samaris. So di Chegore Doji. Ah, teach the so Dionagi, Gajan Carred, Twinjan Carred, this on the tan and Gajan by na, Paya than Twinjan by na, and Sunyaza chair, and reach sound down by na, and then they on the Tagalas of the Twinjan Drossiger was raw. Gajan shall do some by na, Gajan wins the Gurada.
And so if we just think generally of what the Buddha said, but not really apply to our situation and think, how then do I take up what the Buddha said and use it in order to increase my ability, increase our practice, it will not be, our approach will be that effective. So it becomes more effective when you think that, well, this is what the Buddha taught me. This is for me to take up in my practice. So what do I need to do? What do I need to abstain for? What conducive conditions do I need to engender? And what adverse conditions do I need to remove in order to make sure that I take on the teachings of the Buddha as for me an instruction for practice? So if that is the attitude that we develop, maybe we can even say that in some situations, having this access to the internet all the time could also be favorable conditions rather than detrimental circumstance.
Yes.
And so I'll repeat your question also for the people at home. So can we practice this mode of meditation, developing mindfulness or concentration to the point in which those thoughts will not come in and obstruct the focus that we have in our meditation? So sometimes we have thoughts arising like, I need to wash the car, I need to do my shopping and so on and so forth. Those thoughts that arise that impede our concentration. Is it possible to develop concentration to the point in which we can put a stop to those thoughts? That was the question, right? Dila tingezing gomba inarwa, daran tingezing gomba ina. Also tanda tingezing gomdu tan namto jaminda ligirwa, kama tuwache. Kesi di gom mutune gongyawa ina tingezing tempo den dawa den chawa ina namto den de kim matuba den chegirves pena di tsama sogore nyopcho gogore samlo minda sansan shagirwa kogirwa tingezing shuk chembo chawa ina namto bet kaya den de chi ligirves.
Se tombulena legorasra. Koran set the public then pentoching was.
When we develop concentration to a high level, our concentration would be also enough to put a stop to such conceptual consciousnesses that arise in the course of meditation. But of course, as we say, we start where we are. So we have a certain level of concentration, and according to commensurate with the level of concentration that we have now, we'll have a certain ability to put a stop to some forms of conceptuality.
Thank you.
Sure. So did you have another question? Yeah. All right, so you're wondering what does the Buddha Dhamma say about creating a balance between the development of concentration and mindfulness concentration on one hand, and on the other hand, using conceptual forms of meditations like the four immeasurables, wishing sentient beings to be happy, to be free from suffering, and so forth. And so do we have any instructions or advice with respect to how to cultivate this balanced or measured approach to a practice. Yeah. Dila kap dila nganso chemba tang tingin jing gombe kapsulayan namto number tope lo di des kagograwa ene gom shenda gyawaina pena semeshi gombaina senjin tamche dewatan dewe gyu yomba shosea de tani chik samlo tang gograwa samlo tawaina des namto number tope lo di pechu tang gograwa chezan Quran chiwa dekharesena ngatso chochila tingin zingowaina namto kagore cho shemba ne gombaina yan di namto pechu tang gogre dende sen yamba dendawochi gomtsu kadeimba Geshe gayorves.
Yes. And the thing zin gombi kauki namto kaya di so the chingwa da gobares. Madolo samaka goe kejet mares. Devachago mares. Tingin zipigi yulaya tseju neya yul karishana di gores. Ra yul karishana telaya tseju neya di ani yul shenlaya chakpigi ani lola soba. Ani migwa misavigi ani chingwa la soba digi yudelaya tseju neya lodelaya gokenchiganza. Tuzuka gores la gores. Madoji sem kangaka gores. Kechadi shego mares tikala.
Chizan de kalan la de pena tsemeshi gowaina tsemeshi dagran la
Semeshi pena simjan tamje dewada dena yambigi simjan tamje pigi ani sosi yuichi titam chele digin demba chi yile shajora. Shaya dagran sem den de chogores.
And so first of all, Geshe's answer was yes. And then Geshe said that in creating that balanced approach, first of all, in looking at the first mode of meditation that we have been looking at here, cultivating concentration and mindfulness. And so stopping mental discursiveness or that form of conceptuality does not mean to say that we stop conceptuality altogether. It's rather that we stop a certain level of a certain type of conceptuality, which is called here in this section, excitement and laxity. And so when we develop mindfulness or concentration, we take up an object in our mind, we make that appear as clearly as we can, and we cultivate single pointedness in relation to that, without the mind becoming captivated by another object or without losing the clarity of the object. And so since we want to make that object appear to our mind, it can be an object of conceptuality. And so, for example, we think, in relation to the four immeasurables, we can think, may all sentient beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. And then developing a single pointed focus on that. And so, it is a form of conceptuality in which we develop single pointedness with respect to, for example, wishing sentient beings to have happiness. And so this is a form of conceptuality that we have. And while we cultivate concentration, we prevent the mind from being captivated by other things or losing the strength or the clarity with respect to that.
아니 닌지 돌아 상당외는 닌지 돌아야 배 템부슈 데토야 아니 다 로디 딘디 간지 가리 돌아야 상당외는야 아니 템부슈 상당 투야기 아니 셈레야 니버들레고 사레스.
When we cultivate concentration, a mind gains a certain degree of freedom. In that, for example, when the mind gets the freedom or a sense of independence, we can apply it to the cultivation of compassion to make our compassion become very stable. Or in general, we can say that through cultivating concentration and gaining that independence, in gaining control over the mind, whatever we set a mind to, whatever we think, can become so much more powerful because there's a certain level of power that we gain in the mind. Shall we leave it here for today? All right. And so we'll finish with the recitation of the final Lamrim dedication. For my two collections, vast space that I've amassed from working with effort that is practiced for a great length of time, may I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose minds' wisdom eyes blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all lives, Manjushri. May I find the best of complete graded parts of the teachings, and may I please all the Buddhas by my practice, using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion. May I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings, with the points of the path as I've discerned them. May I uphold Buddha's teachings for a very long time, with my heart going out with great compassion, in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread, or once spread have declined. May I reveal this treasure of happiness and aid. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted bounteous peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time by even this graded path to enlightenment, completely due to the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their sons. May all human and non-human beings eliminate adversity and create conducive conditions for practicing the excellent paths, never departed in any of the lives from the purest path praised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtues practices, may you always be assisted by the mighty ones, and may oceans of prosperity spread everywhere. Thank you.